Hey guys, tonight we're going way, way back. Like, no Wi-Fi, no wheels, no words. Kind of back. You're not lounging on your memory foam mattress tonight. Nope. You're curled up on a bed of animal hides over a patch of lumpy stone floor, somewhere inside a drafty cave, tucked under an overhang that smells like ash, sweat, and probably something that used to be a raccoon. Outside, it's not just dark, it's prehistoric dark. The kind where stars feel like the only witnesses to your very questionable life choices. Like, say, sleeping 10 feet from a guy who once mistook a porcupine for a rabbit. You probably won't survive this, but you just might dream better. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, comment where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love knowing who's listening across the ages. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up with the sun. Not to be poetic, but literally. You don't have a clock, a snooze button, or even a Monday. Just a giant glowing orb that tells your half-frozen eyelids it's time to deal with another day of surviving the Stone Age. The cave smells like charred wood, sour fur, and damp moss. Someone next to you is snoring through a nose full of pollen, and there's a weird stain spreading across the floor that you hope is just yesterday's marrow spill. Your back is already sore, and you haven't even stood up yet. You groan and stretch, knocking over a fire-blackened stick someone left too close to your elbow. It clatters and startles a nearby dog. Wait, no, that's just the weird half-wolf your tribe hasn't decided to domesticate yet. It's staring at you like you owe it jerky. You do not. The cave's ceiling drips rhythmically, water trailing from melted frost outside. Moss clings to the rock walls like nature's wallpaper, soft and damp and oddly comforting. The coals from last night's fire pulse red and orange in the gloom, casting slow shadows over soot-blackened paintings. Deer, hunters, a figure with antlers that someone insists keeps blinking when you're not looking. Historians still argue whether those paintings were sacred rituals or just the world's earliest memes. You push off your hide and shuffle toward the mouth of the cave, where the cold slaps you awake better than any espresso shot. You inhale crisp air laced with pine, wet earth, and something faintly metallic. Snow dusts the hilltops outside like powdered sugar, if powdered sugar made your toes go numb. A figure stands near the entrance, already chewing a root and poking at a flint blade like it owes him money. It's Dern. Dern is that guy. You know the one who always wakes up before everyone and somehow makes it your problem. He nods at you but says nothing. Cavemen aren't exactly chatty before sunrise. You nod back, which is universal for, morning. You squint up. The sun is peeking over the trees in long golden shafts. Birds chirp. A squirrel flings itself from a branch with a kind of reckless optimism you simply can't match right now. You contemplate going back to bed. Then you remember, there's no breakfast unless you catch it. Time to get moving. You shuffle down a dirt path worn into the ground from generations of bare feet. It curves through ferns and over rocks slick with dew. Every step squelches or crunches. You wince at a sharp stone and briefly daydream about inventing shoes. At the river, a few others are already gathered, stirring ashes, patching spears, yawning into their palms. One guy is spitting into a clamshell and examining it. Is it for medicine? Decoration? Historians still argue whether these early rituals were practical health tricks or just the world's oldest version of Pinterest fails. You crouch beside a cluster of damp reeds and splash your face with water so cold it slaps your soul. Then you rub your teeth with a twig because, fun fact, toothbrushes are still about 20,000 years away. Charcoal and moss will have to do. Your breath smells like meat and mushrooms, which is honestly pretty good for someone without toothpaste or TikTok. A baby somewhere wails. An elder nearby groans and mutters something in a gravelly tongue that probably translates to "not it." You chuckle and stretch again, watching birds dive through mist just above the treetops. Despite the aching joints and questionable breakfast options, it's kind of peaceful. No honking cars, no emails, just you, your tribe, and whatever creature may or may not try to eat you today. A familiar sound cuts the quiet, the sharp chick-chick of flint against flint. Someone's striking sparks for a new fire. You glance over and spot Iwa, the fire starter of the group. She's crouched in concentration, hair tangled like a bird's nest, lips pressed tight. She once made a fire during a thunderstorm using nothing but wet bark and her own rage. You respect that. You sit beside her, watching the sparks fly. She doesn't acknowledge you, but her eyebrow raises. An unspoken, "What are you doing here without a rabbit or something useful?" You grin sheepishly and pick up a stick, twirling it like you're contributing. She sighs. A few others gather as the flames take, feeding in twigs and dried grass until the fire crackles like old leaves. The warmth spreads quickly, tugging people in like moths. Someone hands around a piece of dried root. Chewy, bitter, probably good for your joints. Or terrible. No one's totally sure. You chew it anyway, and then someone says it. Mammoth Trail, Southridge. Everyone freezes for a breath, then breaks into movement like clockwork. Spears lifted, cloaks adjusted, bellies tightened. You feel it in your gut, nervous and excited and slightly annoyed that you were mid-root snack. Dern is already tightening his sling. You know he's going. You'll go too. Not just for the meat, but for the thrill, the teamwork, the sense that you belong. You stand, your legs creak. You grab your spear and adjust the leather thong wrapped around your chest. You're only fit for the day. Not the comfiest, but it keeps your bits from freezing off, and that's the bar. The fire crackles behind you as you move toward the trail, stepping into a misty world full of danger, hunger, and mystery. This is your life now. And honestly, you're kind of good at it. You tread lightly now, toes curling instinctively as they meet cold stone and crumbly moss. The wind whispers through the trees like some forgotten chant. Low, drawn out, suspiciously dramatic. And you know what that means. Hunting weather. Not too hot to sweat through your fur wrap. Not too cold to freeze your spit midair. The kind of weather that gets things done. Ahead, the rest of the hunting party assembles in a loose, twitchy cluster. Half groggy, half hyped. Dorn, of course, is already crouched, checking his sling and muttering to himself like he's auditioning for the world's first motivational podcast. Awa has a coil of sinew wrapped around her waist, tied to a carved bone hook. You've got a flint blade, a long wooden spear, and about 60% confidence. Your stomach grumbles, loudly. Someone behind you snickers. You walk beside a younger teen, name unclear, but he's got that eternal wide-eyed look. Like he just realized how much of life is spent either running from things or dragging them back to camp. He's holding a rock like it's a sacred artifact. It's not. It's just very shiny. He calls it thud, because of the sound it makes when he drops it, which he does. Often. The group begins to move. It's not a sprint. It's a low, rhythmic crunch of footsteps, sticks, and breath. Each hunter spreads out a bit, watching the ground like it's a language only they can read. And in a way it is. You look down, narrowing your eyes at the shapes in the mud. A heavy line with deep depressions, mammoth. Definitely maybe two. Or maybe one particularly dramatic one with uneven feet. Historians still argue whether these tracking marks reveal consistent migratory patterns or just chaotic grazing with a flair for the unpredictable. You bend to touch the mark. It's fresh. The earth is still damp, the edges crisp. The mammoth was here recently, within the hour. Dern gives a low grunt. Acknowledgement. You all veer right into denser trees. The sunlight flickers like fire through the leaves, dappling your skin and making everything smell of bark, wet moss, and something faintly musky. Could be mammoth. Could be someone in your party who hasn't bathed since the last thunderstorm. Hard to say. As you push through the undergrowth, you notice something odd. The birds have stopped. That cheery morning chorus? Gone. Replaced by a silence so deep it buzzes in your ears. You crouch automatically. The group stills behind you like falling dominoes. Iwa slips beside you, eyes sharp, mouth a tight line. Ahead, through a thicket of fern and frost, the trees open into a clearing. And that's when you see it. Massive. Woolly. Glorious. A mammoth. Its back curves like a hill, fur matted and swaying in the breeze. Its tusks gleam ivory white against the backdrop of pine. It's turning slowly, trunk raised slightly, sniffing. It knows something is off, but not what. Not yet. You all freeze. You try to breathe through your nose as slow as possible. The mammoth swings its head, ears flapping once. Its eye, surprisingly human with a dark iris and thick lashes, scans the tree line. You can almost hear your heartbeat over the tension. Then, snap. Someone steps on a branch, probably Thud Boy. The mammoth jerks. Its trunk shoots upward, trumpeting a sound that feels like thunder mixed with bagpipes. You react on instinct, ducking, tightening your grip on the spear. Dern leaps forward, yelling like a madman. Iwa takes off at an angle, her steps silent as smoke. The mammoth barrels forward. You run. Your feet pound over uneven ground, dodging rocks and roots. Branches whip past your face. Adrenaline sings in your chest like a war drum. This isn't just survival, it's hunting. The pure, primal rush of being alive with a purpose. You and Dern flank left, hoping to funnel the beast toward the drop. A shallow ravine just ahead. If you can just angle it... Iwa emerges from the right, waving something. Smoke? No, burning moss. It stinks like scorched pine and foot sweat. The mammoth swerves, panicked, tusks carving into the bark of a tree with a deep crick. It stumbles slightly. Now you yell. The others respond in kind, shouting, rattling sticks, hurling stones. The noise crescendos into a chaos symphony. The mammoth turns straight toward the ravine, feet slipping, chest heaving. It's working, but not perfectly. The mammoth doesn't fall cleanly. It twists at the last second, skids sideways, and crashes into a tree. The tree loses. Wood splinters fly like shrapnel. One grazes your leg, leaving a sting and a streak of blood. You barely notice. The beast roars again. Weaker now, wounded. You and Dern approach carefully, circling. It tries to rise, legs trembling, but slumps again, sides heaving like bellows. A slow exhale escapes its trunk, misting the cold air. Its eyes meet yours again. You step closer. Raise your spear. One thrust, quick, clean. The forest goes still. You back away, chest heaving. The others slowly approach, murmuring low praises to the spirit of the hunt, to the animal, to the ground. A few begin to touch the mammoth reverently, offering silent thanks. Whether this is religion or just very polite gratitude is anyone's guess. Historians still debate how spiritual early hunters really were, or whether they were just trying to avoid bad luck. You sit on a rock, breathing hard. Your fingers tremble, but not from fear, more like the aftershock of adrenaline fading. You glance at Dern, who just grins and holds out his hand. You slap it. Primitive high five achieved. Someone starts carving immediately. Flint knives flash in practiced hands, slicing through hide and tendon. Steam rises from the mammoth's still warm flesh. Blood trickles down into the frost, vivid red against white. You wipe your blade on a patch of moss and watch the steam spiral upward like a ghost. You're exhausted, filthy, slightly bruised, and victorious. Your stomach growls again. Soon the real feast begins. You're still buzzing from the hunt, that raw thrum of energy pulsing in your hands as you grip the spear. The mammoth is down, the air filled with the scent of iron and earth, and now comes the part that separates the rookies from the seasoned hunters. the tracking and hauling of the rest of the herd. Because you know this one mammoth? Yeah, it had friends. Big, angry, and not thrilled about what just happened. Iwa squats near a muddy patch, running her fingers over trampled grass and half-frozen prints. Her face is all focus, cheekbones sharp, eyes glinting with that "don't mess this up" fire. You kneel beside her, trying to look like you totally understand how to read this prehistoric crime scene. You don't. To you, it looks like footprints. To her, it's a saga. Who passed here? How fast they moved? How heavy they were? Whether they were panicked or chill. She's basically Sherlock Holmes in a world where magnifying glasses are just rocks. South, she mutters, pointing with the tip of a bone awl. Fresh trail. Fresh. That's either exciting or horrifying, depending on how attached you are to the idea of not getting flattened today. You give her a quick nod and stand, stretching your sore back. Behind you, Dern and the teen with Thud are already prepping for the follow-up chase, tightening hide straps and sharpening stone tips like this is just another Tuesday, which, for them, it kind of is. The wind shifts, bringing with it the faint smell of something heavy and musky. Not your hunting party. Something bigger. You glance up at the treetops swaying gently against a pale sky, and you catch sight of a dark shape moving in the distance. Could be a shadow. Could be your imagination. Or more likely a very large, very annoyed mammoth, trying to decide if revenge is on the menu. You follow Ewa's lead as she crouches low and moves along the faint path carved through the grass. The ground here is a patchwork of mud, frozen puddles, and the occasional tuft of yellow grass bending under frost. You feel every step in your calves. No gym membership needed. Caveman cardio is brutal. Half an hour into the tracking, your stomach protests again. It's not just hungry, it's staging a revolt. Someone passes you a strip of dried meat from a last week's hunt. You chew it, jaw aching, while thinking wistfully about modern snacks like potato chips. Imagine explaining to a caveman that someday people would deep fry thin slices of tubers just to crunch on them, absent-mindedly during TV shows. He'd probably think you're insane, or a wizard, or both. The ground dips slightly ahead, forming a shallow ravine filled with scraggly bushes and patches of snow. You all freeze as Ewa lifts a hand. She tilts her head listening. It's silent, too silent, which in caveman terms means something is either about to bolt or eat you. Dern creeps forward, crouching behind a boulder. He signals with 2 fingers, pointing toward the far side of the ravine. You follow his gaze, and there it is. A smaller mammoth, maybe a juvenile, maybe just a runt with an attitude problem. It's pawing at the ground nervously, sniffing the air. You feel a twinge of guilt. It's probably looking for the one your group just took down. But survival isn't feelings game, and dinner doesn't grow on trees. Well, okay, berries do, but they taste like sadness compared to mammoth ribs. The team huddles briefly, whispering in a mix of grunts, hand signals, and what might be the earliest form of trash talk. The plan? Distract, corner, scare it into a trap if possible. Simple. Dangerous. Probably going to leave bruises. You take position near a clump of thin trees, crouching low. Your spear feels heavier now, or maybe your arms are just tired from earlier. You glance around, noting every stick and stone that could trip you mid-run, because nothing screams prehistoric fail like face-planting in front of a mammoth. Iwa makes the first move. She tosses a burning tuft of moss toward the animal. It lands with a hiss, sending up a puff of acrid smoke. The mammoth flinches, trumpeting in alarm. Dern charges from the left, yelling something incoherent but definitely aggressive. You spring forward from the right, heart pounding like a war drum. The mammoth bolts. Not toward you, thankfully, but toward the ravine. You sprint, legs burning, lungs on fire. Every step is a gamble. A misstep on the slick ground could turn you into a pancake. Behind you, Thud Boy actually throws Thud. It bounces off a rock and scares a bird. Well, points for effort. The mammoth slips down the slope of the ravine, skidding awkwardly, its trunk swinging like a rope. You follow carefully, sliding more than running, using your spear like a walking stick. At the bottom, the ground is muddy, the kind of mud that clings to your feet like it's trying to drag you to the underworld. You squelch forward anyway. Iwa signals sharply. This is it. The moment to push, to force it into the corner where rocks and brambles trap it. The others fan out, shouting, waving, making as much noise as possible. It's chaos. Pure, glorious chaos. Then the mammoth stumbles. Its back leg catches on a rock, and it crashes to one knee. Dern lunges forward with his spear, aiming for the shoulder. You do the same, though your thrust is less graceful and more, "Please don't let me die." The beast roars, its breath steaming, trunk flailing. It's over quicker than you expect. One last shove, one last cry. Silence. You stand there, panting, the spear still trembling in your hands. Your muscles scream, your lungs burn, but you're alive. And so, ironically, is dinner. Well, was. Someone laughs, short, breathless, almost disbelieving. Then another joins. Soon you're all chuckling like a bunch of sleep-deprived kids who just survived gym class from hell. You drop your spear and lean against a tree, watching steam rise from the mammoth's body as the winter air cools it. This is what you do all day. Track. Chase. Hope you don't get flattened. You glance at Iwa, who's already prepping her flint knife for the butchering. Her expression is unreadable. Part pride, part hunger, part, "You better pull your weight when we haul this thing back." And yeah, you will. Because the smell of that meat roasting later, totally worth it. The silence after a kill is eerie. Not peaceful, just hollow. The kind that rings in your ears after the chaos dies down and the adrenaline cools like damp ash. You lean on your spear, chest rising and falling, watching the steam drift from the fallen mammoth's body. The team begins to gather, breath clouding in the crisp air, limbs shaky but functional. No one's speaking much. There's no "good game" or "nice job, bro." Just a shared look. That quiet understanding. We survived. Again. Now comes the not-so-glamorous part. You step forward and kneel near the carcass. The creature is enormous. Up close, its fur is thick and coarse like a doormat, soaked in river water. The tusks curve upward like ivory sighs, each one longer than your entire torso. You reach out and place a hand on its flank, offering a quiet moment of thanks. Part ritual, part survival guilt, part... You're not sure. Just feels right. And then the butchering begins. Iwa naturally is first. She draws a jagged flint blade from her belt and slices through the hide with practiced ease. You follow her lead, gripping your own crude knife, a sharp-edged flake tied to a bone handle, and begin working the thick skin. The fur peels away reluctantly, each tug releasing a puff of warm air and the heavy iron scent of fresh blood. You're immediately soaked to the elbows. It's not glamorous. It's messy, exhausting, and weirdly intimate. Every tendon, every layer of fat, every bone. There's a method, a rhythm. Ewa shows you how to find the sweet spot at the joint where one twist pops the leg free. You nod, impressed. She's done this dozens of times, maybe more. Someone behind you slips and curses, not in words, but in a groan so guttural it could be a spell. They land in the mud with a satisfying splotch. You try not to laugh, but a snort escapes. Even Iwa cracks a grin. You pause to flex your fingers, already going numb. The cold is creeping in under your tunic, biting at your spine, but the work keeps you moving. You help carve out the rib meat, long, heavy slabs that would feed the camp for days. The bones are thick, and cracking them takes two people, a large stone, and a lot of swearing. One hunter, Roar, who's shaped like a bear and smells like one too, hauls out the liver with a triumphant grunt. He holds it up like a trophy, grinning. blood running down his arms like war paint. "Good liver," he says in a voice like gravel and smoked bark. You nod solemnly, even though you're thinking it looks like something that fell out of a cave troll. You help carry slabs of meat to a clearing where others are already building a sled out of tree limbs and sinew. It's primitive, sure, but effective. You loop hide straps over your shoulder and start loading hunks of muscle, bones, and that one weird organ nobody knows what to do with. Some say it's lucky. Others say it smells like doom. Historians still argue whether ancient beliefs around animal organs were spiritual, medicinal, or just wildly optimistic. By midday, your arms feel like jelly. Everything aches, shoulders, back, even your eyebrows for some reason. You wipe your hands on a patch of snow and stare at the half-disassembled mammoth, now reduced to a skeleton of its former self. You wonder, not for the first time, if it had a name. A family. If somewhere out there a larger, angrier mammoth is plotting revenge. You head back toward camp slowly, dragging the sled with 3 others. The path is uneven, filled with roots and ruts and icy puddles. It's like pulling a fridge through a swamp. At one point, Dern trips and face plants into the snow. He gets up with moss in his teeth and mutters something that sounds vaguely threatening to gravity. You pass under twisted trees, their bare branches clawing at the sky. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the caw of a raven, sharp and echoing. A bad omen? Or just a scavenger waiting for leftovers? Who knows? You press on. By the time you glimpse the smoky tendrils of your campfire through the trees, your legs are shaking. Not dramatically, but that low, persistent wobble like your bones are whispering. You're not getting up tomorrow. People see you approaching and rush out, some to help, others just to stare. Kids run in circles, pointing and giggling. One of them immediately tries to climb onto the sled like it's a toy. He gets gently swatted away. Someone lets out a cheer. Another begins clapping, and soon the whole tribe is applauding. Not loudly, more like a gentle rhythm of thanks. The mammoth meat means everyone eats tonight. The marrow, the fat, the tongue, which according to Ewa is weirdly delicious. Nothing will go to waste. You collapse near the fire, catching a piece of dried grass and chewing it without thinking. It tastes like dirt and dreams, but you're too tired to care. Nearby, they begin roasting the first pieces. Large ribs laid across hot stones, juices sizzling as the heat works its magic. The smell alone could raise the dead. Someone tosses in a handful of herbs. Were they found herbs in this frozen wasteland? You don't ask. Probably a secret grandma patch. Your stomach growls so loudly it scares a bird. Ewa sits beside you and offers a strip of roasted fat. Crispy on the outside, soft in the middle, and so rich it makes your eyes roll back. You groan in pleasure. Better than berries, you mutter. She snorts. Better than Dern's cooking. You both laugh. Dern glares from across the fire but says nothing, mostly because his mouth is full. As the sun sinks, the fire grows. Shadows stretch long across the clearing, dancing over stone walls and sleeping dogs. Someone begins humming, a low, steady tune. Not a song, really, just a sound that matches the rhythm of the flames. Others join in. Soon the air hums with warmth, smoke, and something close to joy. You lean back, head resting on a bundle of fur, belly full and body aching in the best way. You glance up at the sky. Purple now, the stars just peeking out like curious onlookers. You think, we made it through another day. No alarms, no texts, just mammoths, fire, and the weirdly satisfying crackle of meat on hot stone. And maybe a quiet kind of happiness. It's been a long day. One of those bone-deep, marrow-tired days where even your eyelids feel like they need a nap. But there's no rest yet. The hunt may be over, the fire burning high, and the bellies starting to fill. But now comes one of the most oddly communal and absolutely vital rituals of your prehistoric life. Processing the kill. The butchering may have ended in the forest, but now you've got chunks of mammoth meat and bone the size of small children sprawled across the camp. And these aren't just for eating. Nope. Every scrap of that creature will be used. Tools, thread, needles, tents, even jewelry. Because hey, even 30,000 years ago, someone always wanted to stunt a little with a mammoth tooth necklace. You step into the flurry of activity, pulling a still steaming rib bone across the packed earth toward the tool circle, an area where the ground has been worn smooth by years of knapping and carving. The air here smells of blood, ash, and that weird smoky tang of heated stone. You drop the bone with a thunk, stretching your back until it cracks like dry bark. Nearby, a few people are hunched over slabs of flint, striking sparks and slicing long curls of hide. You spot Awa again, squatting with one knee in the dirt as she scrapes a tusk with a sharpened rock. She's focused, deliberate, her hands moving in small, precise circles as if coaxing a shape out of the ivory. Maybe a dagger, maybe something ceremonial, maybe just something sharp enough to skin the next thing that crosses her path. You grab a flint shard and head to your own patch of ground. Time to work. Knapping is one of those skills that looks easy until your fingers are full of splinters and your thighs are covered in rock dust. You've done this 100 times, but it still feels like the stones are judging you. You crouch, select a piece of obsidian from the pile, dark, glossy, deadly, and give it a good tap with a rounder stone. Crack. A flake falls away, clean and beautiful. Success. You keep going, slowly shaping a fresh blade. The sound of tapping fills the air, a kind of prehistoric percussion that blends with the background murmur of the fire and the occasional fart from someone who ate too much marrow too fast. It's always Dern. Always. You zone out a little, falling into the rhythm of the work. Crack, rotate, tap, flake. It's almost meditative, really. You wonder if this is what ancient spa treatments felt like, just with more sharp objects and slightly fewer cucumber slices. Suddenly there's a yelp. You glance over and see Thud Boy cradling his finger, which now sports a shallow but dramatic-looking cut. Iwa strolls over, glances at it, and then slaps a piece of moss onto it like a prehistoric band-aid. "Don't bleed on the tool," she grumbles. Thud nods, looking faintly proud of his wound. You return to your blade, now shaped enough to tie to a bone handle. The process involves sinew, wet, sticky, animal tendon string that you twist and wrap like dental floss from hell. The smell isn't great, but the end result? A brand new spearhead, gleaming in the firelight like a work of dangerous art. You lift it, testing the weight. It's good, solid, balanced. You give it a few playful jabs into the air and nearly trip over a dog that decided your feet were the perfect napping spot. It yelps and scurries away, and you offer an apologetic grunt. The dog does not forgive you. It gives you the same look your little cousin gave you when you ate the last berry mash. Meanwhile, the older folks are working on the hide. Sprawled out over a frame made of bent saplings, the mammoth's thick pelt is being scraped clean. It takes hours. Layers of fat, hair, and frozen grime, peeled away with sharp-edged stones. Eventually, it'll be smoked over the fire to cure it, then sewn into cloaks, mats, maybe even a new tent flap, if someone's willing to wrestle it through the door. You join in, hands aching but steady. The hide resists at first, tough and unyielding, but with patience and leverage, you start to pull it clean. Fat squelches. You try not to think about it too much. Across the fire, someone starts sharpening mammoth ribs into long, wicked-looking poles. Makeshift fence posts, or fishing spears, or maybe just very dramatic back scratchers. It's hard to say. Historians still argue whether the giant rib tools found at early dig sites were functional weapons or just status symbols, because even cavemen had egos. You glance over at Dern, who's threading bone needles with twisted sinew. He's surprisingly good at it. Big fingers, gentle touch. Probably had a grandma who taught him. You nod approvingly. He grins and holds up a finished needle. For stitching furs or poking annoying cousins. You snort. Guess which one I'll be using it for. By the time the moon is fully overhead, the camp looks like a butcher's workshop and a craft fair had a very intense baby. Tools line the rocks. Strips of meat hang on wooden racks near the fire. Bones are stacked neatly, or sometimes not so neatly, into piles waiting to be sorted. There's even a row of teeth someone's cleaned and tied together with gut string. It looks like the world's most aggressive wind chime. You sit back, spine creaking, and stare at your hands. Dirty. Sore. But satisfied. Everything you've touched today was survival. From the flint blade to the cooked fat, from the scraped hide to the sharpened bone. It all matters. There's no wasted effort. No throwaway plastic wrappers. Just the rhythm of existence. You catch Ewa watching the sky? Her silhouette is sharp against the firelight. Storm coming, she mutters. You glance up. The stars are blurring behind a sheet of clouds. Heavy, slow-moving. Dark as mammoth blood. You feel a breeze curl around your legs, colder than before. Yup. She's probably right. Time to get everything inside. The scramble begins. Meat is moved to the cave entrance. Tools are collected. Furs dragged in. Even the kids know what to do, grabbing baskets of dried roots and ducking inside before the drizzle starts. You grab the last of the fresh flint and follow. As you duck into the cave, the first drops begin to fall. Fat, cold splashes that hit your shoulders like tiny slaps. You glance back just long enough to see the fire outside hissing under the rain, steam curling upward into the night. Inside, it's dim, warm, noisy. People talking, laughing, arguing about who gets the driest patch near the fire. You collapse next to a stone outcropping and stretch out, cloak wrapped tight around your shoulders. Outside, the rain falls harder, but you're in. Dry. Full. Armed with a new spear and a slightly better understanding of mammoth anatomy than you had this morning. You let your head rest back and exhale. Another day done. The cave is alive tonight? Not just in the literal sense, though yes. Every inch is packed with breathing, snoring, muttering, shifting bodies. But alive in that buzzing, jittery way that follows a hunt, a feast and a fire still crackling, just strong enough to keep the cold from biting your toes off. You lie on your side, eyes half-lidded, watching the flicker of flame dance across the ceiling. The rock above is blackened with soot and stories. Paintings, ancient even by your standards, crawl across the stone in earthy reds, charcoals, and ochres. Deer with long, delicate legs, a lion with too many teeth. Stick figures mid-spear throw, forever frozen in action. Your favorite is a woolly rhino with one eye suspiciously larger than the other. You suspect that was done on purpose. Maybe the artist had a sense of humor. Or maybe that rhino had beef with somebody. Either way, you like it. Someone stokes the fire. Sparks spiral upward in a graceful burst before vanishing into smoke. The cave air is thick, part wood smoke, part mammoth grease, and part whatever it is that always clings to Dern after a long day. He smells like wet bear and onions, and yet somehow no one says a word. Maybe out of fear, or respect, or both. You roll over and catch a glimpse of the tool pile near the wall. Obsidian blades glinting like teeth, ropes of twisted gut, bundles of sharpened sticks. All of it made by hand, with effort and fingers and the occasional bloody accident. You still have a flint scar on your thigh that looks suspiciously like a tiny fish. Ewa says it's lucky. You think it's mildly embarrassing. Tonight's task is different. Less frantic, more precise. It's time to cook. Not like the chaotic roast fest earlier. No, this is the art part. The slow, smoky magic that turns meat into something more than fuel. You shuffle closer to the hearth, where the coals glow a steady, inviting orange. A few others are already gathered. Mostly the older crowd, the ones with gray streaks in their braids and knees that pop like firewood. One elder, No, is poking at a slab of meat with a carved stick. He hums a low tune as he works, rhythm matching the crackle of the coals. You squat nearby and nod politely. He nods back. That's the entire conversation. Someone else hands you a flat stone smeared with animal fat and sprinkled with crushed herbs. You blink. Spices in this economy? You raise an eyebrow, but the woman shrugs like, "Yeah, I foraged that." You're welcome. You gently place a strip of mammoth on the hot rock, the fat sizzling instantly. The smell punches you in the face, in the best way. Rich, gamey, just slightly smoky with a hint of something sharp and green. Don't flip it too early, No mutters without looking. Let the seer talk first. You pause. Blink. Did he just drop caveman cooking wisdom? You suddenly want to open a Paleolithic food truck. Mammoth munchies, flavors before fire. The slab of meat crisps beautifully, curling at the edges. You flip it, carefully, and catch the tiniest, most satisfying hiss. The others are experimenting too. One is wrapping meat in leaves, burying it under hot stones. Another is trying to stew bone marrow in a turtle shell, balanced over coals. It's bubbling ominously, might explode. But hey, progress. You sample your piece. It's perfect. Charred on the edges, tender inside, salty from the herb mix. You close your eyes. If you could bottle this taste, you'd own half the valley. A little girl toddles over, hair wild, eyes huge. She looks at your meat, then at you, then back at the meat. You sigh and break off a chunk. She grabs it gleefully and runs off before you can change your mind. Classic. You retreat with the rest of your portion, chewing slowly. Each bite tastes like smoke, sweat, teamwork, and a little bit of blood from that scrape on your knuckle you keep forgetting to bandage. You settle near the edge of the firelight, where shadows dance but the air is warm. Dern is there, lying back with his arms behind his head like he owns the place. He tosses you a nod. "Good hunt," he says. You grunt. A compliment from Dern is rarer than a summer snow. Nearby, someone begins fiddling with a drum. Nothing fancy, just a stretched hide over a hollow log. The rhythm starts slow, like a heartbeat. People begin to sway, humming softly, fingers tapping thighs, arms, stones. The air fills with rhythm and smoke and soft laughter. And then someone sings. It's not really a song, more like a drawn-out story. Words strung together with breath and feeling, rising and falling like waves. It's the story of the hunt, today's hunt, but told like a legend. The mammoth is bigger. The danger, grander. Dern may or may not have fought it hand to tusk. He definitely didn't. The singer's voice carries through the cave, wrapping around you like a second cloak. You let your eyes close, the rhythm of the drum syncing with your heartbeat. This is how stories are born, how history sticks. No books, no pens, just meat, fire, and memory. Somewhere near the back of the cave, someone laughs too loud. A child shrieks. A bone cracks in the fire. You smile to yourself. Your spear lies nearby, polished and newly tipped. Your belly is full. Your hands are calloused but steady. And as the smoke curls upward to meet the painted ceiling, you think, this life, messy, smoky, loud, isn't so bad. You press your back to the stone wall, the warmth of the fire kissing your skin. The wind howls softly outside, but inside the cave is alive. And for now, that's enough. You wake to the unmistakable sound of someone stepping on a snail. Loud, squishy, and deeply unfortunate. It's still early. Blue light filters in from the cave mouth, barely illuminating the sleeping bodies around you. A child snores gently against their mother's fur wrap, and someone nearby is grinding their teeth loud enough to qualify as construction work. Your neck hurts. Your back hurts. Honestly, even your hair feels tired. You're alive, though. So, a win. You sit up slowly, brushing ash from your arm and realizing too late that you rolled halfway into the fire's edge during the night. Your cloak smells like smoked wool and poor decisions. Someone tried to snuff the fire using wet moss, and now everything smells faintly of steamed fungus. You resist gagging, barely. Outside, the morning air is crisp and sharp, the kind that bites your cheeks and steals your breath before you've even opened your eyes fully. You stretch and groan, loudly, because subtlety is for people who didn't just drag a mammoth across 2 hills in a swamp yesterday. Breakfast is complicated. You shuffle to the main clearing, where a few members of the tribe are poking at a leather sack that may or may not contain last night's leftover stew. A debate is happening. Is it food or is it soup-shaped regret? Dern pokes it with a stick and sniffs. Still good, he declares, moments before handing it to a teenager with the clear, doomed energy of someone trying to impress Ewa. The teen takes a bite. He survives. Barely. You opt for a safer choice, some dried berries and a strip of smoked fat. It's chewy, a little like licking a candle, but it'll do. Once the fire's properly stoked again and people stop arguing over who drooled on whom in their sleep, turns out it was the dog. You all gather outside the cave for the daily debrief, aka what modern people would call a morning meeting, but with less coffee and more grunting. And this morning, there's drama. Apparently someone's been hoarding. You know this because Roar, who is usually more tree than man, is currently waving a half-eaten mushroom and yelling something that loosely translates to, "Who touched my stash?" His face is red. His veins are doing things. The tribe collectively side-eyes a small boy currently trying to disappear into his own fur coat. To be fair, it was a really good mushroom. You lean against a tree and watch the chaos unfold. Ewa strolls over, expression unreadable. She glances at you, then at the shouting match, and deadpans. Better than theater. You smirk. Think they'll fight to the death or just wrestle dramatically in the mud? She shrugs. Depends if the mushroom was hallucinogenic. A pause. You both slowly turn back to the argument with renewed interest. Eventually, the elders step in, the mushroom is shared, what's left of it, and the boy is given the unenviable task of scraping moss from cave walls for the rest of the day. Justice, prehistoric edition. The mood lightens. Someone starts juggling stones. Badly. You and Yewa decide it's time for chores. First up, cleaning and sharpening tools, again. Because everything dulls. Spears, knives, patience, the works. You sit near the tool pile, flint blade in hand, gently scraping away grime and smoothing out edges. The rhythm is oddly calming, even with the occasional ow from someone who forgot which end is sharp. Flint dust sparkles in the morning light, fine as sand, coating your fingers like glitter, but cooler and bloodier. Across from you, a group is weaving baskets from thin strips of bark and sinew. They talk quietly, gossip mostly. Who likes who? Who's bad at hunting but makes up for it by being good with fire? Who might have drawn a slightly unflattering cave painting of Dern next to a particularly round mammoth? That was definitely Ewa. Even in the Paleolithic, there is drama. Your own tools are coming along nicely. You test the edge of your new knife on your thumb, slicing a tiny curl of skin before you realize what you're doing. Still got it, you mumble, sucking on the cut. You look up just in time to see Ewa trip over Thudboy's rock. Again. She goes down with a grunt, rolls back up like a cat, and glares at the rock like it insulted her ancestors. She grabs it and hurls it into the forest with a satisfying thunk. A few seconds later, a squirrel screams in the distance. Probably coincidence. Probably. Later, when the sun is high and shadows stretch sharp across the ground, you help repair one of the smaller tents, made of stitched hides reinforced with bones and prone to collapsing in high winds. A kid is watching you from the side, eyes wide, mouth sticky with something red and probably poisonous. You smile at him. He runs away. Fair. Your stitching is decent. Not perfect, but the hide holds. Ewa joins you with a handful of bone needles and a bundle of thread made from sinew and stubbornness. You both work in silence, trading tools, adjusting knots, leaning into the quiet rhythm of creation. It's weirdly peaceful. The sky overhead is streaked with pale clouds, birds circling high above. The wind is soft, the trees whispering to each other like gossiping elders. You exhale and realize you feel safe. Sort of. Because no day in cave life ends without one more twist. Just as you're tying off the last thread, someone comes crashing out of the forest. Breathless, wide-eyed, bleeding slightly from the knee. You recognize them immediately, one of the scouts. They skid to a stop in front of the campfire, panting so hard they can't speak. Everyone freezes. You rise slowly, spear in hand. Animals? Someone asks. The scout shakes their head. People. The word hangs heavy. You exchange a look with Ewa. Dorn stands already reaching for his club. Outsiders, visitors, maybe friends, maybe not. You wipe your hands on your tunic, suddenly very aware that you smell like smoked fat and sweat. You grip your spear tighter. Cave life? Never dull. So, people. Strangers, to be precise. Outsiders. Visitors from beyond the ridge, or maybe just a few valleys over. It's hard to say. You don't exactly have a Paleolithic GPS, and nobody's leaving cave reviews like great mammoth stew, terrible sleeping mats, 2 out of 5 stars. The scout who brought the news finally catches his breath. 3 of them, he rasps, pointing toward the east. Coming slow. Not hunting, carrying nothing. This could mean many things. Diplomats, wanderers, lost weirdos with no sense of direction. Or, worst case, scouts from a rival group looking to test your strength before doing something dumb. Historians still argue whether early human contact was mostly cooperative or aggressive. Judging by how tense everyone gets when the word visitors is mentioned, you're betting on aggressively cooperative at best. You rise, stretching sore limbs and checking the tension on your spear's bindings. Ewa is already moving, her face unreadable, jaw tight. Dern, of course, is sharpening his club like he hopes it gets used. He hums softly as he works, and honestly, it's kind of unsettling. You gather at the edge of camp. The others form a loose circle, weapons at the ready but not raised. You're not hostile exactly, you're cautiously hospitable. Think. The Stone Age version of peeking through the curtains when someone knocks on your door uninvited. And then you see them. 3 figures emerging from the tree line. They walk slowly, hands visible, nothing drawn. No weapons that you can see. The leader, a tall woman with wild, sun-faded hair and deep laugh lines, raises both hands, palms open. A universal sign. We're cool. Please don't stab us. You exhale slowly. They step closer into the clearing, into the silence. The woman looks around the camp, her eyes sharp, calculating but not unkind. Beside her is a much younger man, eyes darting everywhere like a nervous rabbit, and an older man who leans heavily on a carved walking stick shaped like a serpent. You mentally name them Talkie, Shaky, and Grandpa Snake. Talkie speaks first, her voice clear, rough edge like someone who's yelled over many fires. She uses the shared root language. Primitive, sure, but functional. We saw your fires, she says. We mean peace. Trade, if you'll have it. The tension eases slightly. Just slightly. Ewa steps forward, flicks a glance at you, then addresses them. What do you bring? Talkie gestures to a wrapped bundle at her hip. She unfolds it slowly, deliberately, and reveals several small items. Smoked fish, impressive given you haven't seen a river that wasn't half frozen in weeks. Glossy black stones that glint with promise, and something that makes your eyebrows rise. A carved shell comb. A comb. You haven't seen one of those in seasons. Your hair's currently matted into something best described as prehistoric tumbleweed. You try not to look too interested, but Yeha notices and smirks. Dern mutters, "No one needs that," while subtly smoothing his beard. The tribe murmurs, soft but curious. Trade isn't rare, but it's always a gamble. Still, fish, stones, that comb. Ewa nods once, the universal signal for fine but behave. The strangers are allowed to step into the edge of the camp, just past the boundary where smoke becomes warmth. No weapons, no sudden moves, no wandering. That's the unspoken rule. You watch as they settle near the fire. Grandpa Snake wheezes as he sits, clearly relieved to get off his feet. Shaky Man immediately begins chewing a piece of bark he probably wasn't supposed to. You like him already. The rest of the day becomes a quiet dance of observation. You trade cautious glances. They eat slowly, gratefully. Someone offers them a bit of mammoth liver. They pretend to like it. Everyone pretends to believe them. Later, you're chosen to show them the tool circle. A diplomatic move. You lead Taki and Shaky across the camp to where the flint tools glint like dragon teeth in the sun. You gesture at a particularly fine blade you made yesterday. Taki's eyebrows lift. You make that? You nod. She picks it up, tests the edge against her thumb. Doesn't cut herself. You're both impressed. She reaches into her wrap and pulls out a small, circular stone with a polished hole through the center. You frown. It's not a tool, it's decorative? Neck stone, she explains. Luck from far east, beyond red cliffs. You've heard of those cliffs, never seen them. The thought of this stone traveling all that way, passed from hand to hand, cave to cave. It's dizzying. You nod slowly, then offer her the flint knife. Trade. She accepts, and for a second you share a smile that cuts through time like flint through hide. Just two humans, bartering their way through a dangerous, messy world. Shaky Man doesn't have anything to trade. He just offers you a stick with a carved spiral on one end. It looks like it does absolutely nothing. You take it anyway. It's beautiful. Probably cursed. Definitely keeping it. Back at the fire, the strangers are allowed to stay the night. Outside the main cave, but within the warmth of the communal fire pit. It's a show of trust, or maybe just exhaustion. You sit nearby, watching them eat, speak softly to each other, laugh. They sound different. Their stories have different animals, different names for the stars. One of them points at Orion's belt and calls it Sky Elk. You like that. You might steal it. Later, as the fire dies down and the cave begins to inhale the night, Ewa sits beside you. Her eyes are fixed on the strangers. They'll leave by morning, she says. Think they'll come back? You ask. She shrugs. Maybe, if they're smart. You both fall silent. Sometimes you wonder, how many groups are out there? How many fires flicker across the world tonight? How many people sit just like this, bones sore, bellies full, wondering if the dark holds danger or just dreams? You look down at the neck stone in your hand, smooth and impossibly old. You grip it tightly. You are not alone. And somehow, in this wild, cold, relentless world, that means something. The strangers leave at dawn. No fuss, no noise. Just long shadows stretching through the frost as they slip quietly back into the forest, like mist retreating from the sun. You watch from the cave entrance, rubbing sleep from your eyes and wondering if they were even real. The fire's coals are still warm where they slept, though, and there's a perfect imprint of a butt in the dirt where Grandpa Snake sat, so... yeah. Real enough. You still have the neck stone tucked into a pouch at your hip. You haven't stopped touching it since the trade. Smooth, solid, like it carries stories inside. The others shuffle into the morning one by one, some stretching, some groaning, one or two definitely trying to pretend they weren't drooling in their sleep. Dern stomps out of the cave, squinting at the sunlight like it insulted his ancestors. His hair is doing something truly unholy today. Ewa appears moments later, already alert, scanning the horizon like she expects another visitor to pop out of the bushes holding a flute or something. Breakfast is uneventful. Some charred tubers, dried meat, and something that might have once been a berry mash, but now resembles regret in a bowl. You eat it anyway. You're not proud, you're just hungry. After eating, you wander toward the back of the cave. Not the sleeping area, but the part reserved for the tribe's oldest pastime, art. It's quieter here, sacred almost. The air is cool and still, the stone walls curving like a protective shell around you. Someone's already been working this morning. A fresh streak of red pigment smears the wall, still glistening slightly. Beside it is the outline of a hand, pressed in ochre, fingers splayed like a sunburst. You hold your own hand up to it. It's smaller, faded, but still there. You weren't the first to leave your mark here. You won't be the last. You settle near a pile of pigments, crushed stone, burnt wood, animal fat mixed into color, reds, blacks, browns, the occasional rare yellow. You dip your fingers into a bowl of red and begin sketching. Slowly, carefully, a spiral, then a line, then a mammoth. You're not great at proportions, but you give it a noble face and extra fluff. Artistic license. Cave painting, you've learned, is not about getting it right. It's about remembering, fixing the memory into stone, saying we were here, we mattered, we lived. Ewa joins you, settling beside the wall with a brush made from reed and bone. She dips it in charcoal and starts outlining a hunt scene. A figure mid-spear throw, a leaping deer, the impression of movement with just a few strokes. She's good, frustratingly so. You glance at your mammoth, which now looks more like a startled goat. You shrug and add horns. Fixed. Behind you, others gather. Children mostly, wide-eyed and whispering. One tries to copy your spiral, ends up with a messy blob, and immediately declares it a spirit rock. Everyone agrees. Boom! Article someone offers a story as they paint, voice low and melodic. The tale of the firebird that rose from the ashes and carried the sun on its back. You've heard it before. Half legend, half lullaby, all nonsense. But somehow it makes the cold cave feel warmer. As the story flows, others add their memories to the wall. A boar with a gaping mouth, a thunderstorm made of swirling black lines, a figure dancing in circles, possibly you, possibly symbolic, possibly just someone having a breakdown during the last long winter. Historians still argue whether cave art was ritual, record-keeping, or the world's earliest therapy session. Eventually, Ewa stands and steps back, eyes narrowed critically at her own work. She tilts her head, then smears one figure slightly and adds another line. "Now it breathes," she murmurs. You nod like you totally get what that means. Outside, the sky shifts, clouds gather. A soft wind snakes its way into the cave, lifting the edge of a fur cloak and stirring the ashes. You brush the last of the pigment from your fingers and sit back, letting your creation dry. It's lumpy, slightly crooked, but it's yours. Later, as the tribe starts preparing for another round of tool-making and food sorting, you wander into the forest to gather materials. You're not assigned. You just need the air, the solitude. The forest is alive. Wet bark gleams under the light. Birds trill unseen. Somewhere, far off, a stream gurgles like it's telling secrets. You crouch beside a mossy stone and begin searching for good flint. Smooth, sharp-edged, glassy. You find 2 decent pieces and 1 absolute gem. A long shard with a perfect curve like a talon. You tuck it into your pouch beside the next stone. Treasure? On your way back, you stumble upon something unexpected. A tiny pile of stones, carefully stacked. A marker. Someone was here. Not your tribe. The shapes are unfamiliar, the positioning too neat. You squat beside it, tilting your head. A message? A boundary? A gift? You leave a feather next to it. Not because you have to, just because. Back at camp, everyone's busy again. Life never pauses for long. Meat needs drying. Bones need cracking. Someone's trying to fix a broken tent pole using 3 sticks, 2 curses, and an unreasonable amount of hope. You join in, helping lash together firewood bundles with twisted vines. The rhythm returns. Wrap, knot, pull. Over and over until your hands ache and your back creaks and the wind tugs at your hair. Eventually the day winds down. Fires are lit. Stories begin. And before long, someone brings out the paint again. You add a line beside your mammoth. Just a single line, but one that curves. Suggests motion, suggests change. And when the smoke curls up to meet the stars, you look at the wall and see your life. Not just surviving, but existing. Not just here, but part of here. Rain. Not the dramatic kind. No thunder, no sky-splitting lightning bolts or booming echoes across cliffs. Just that slow, persistent drizzle that soaks into your bones and makes everything smell like wet dog and disappointment. The cave isn't leaking exactly, but let's just say that water has found creative new ways to surprise you. Drips from the ceiling. Damp firewood. Someone's bedding smells suspiciously like frog. You wake with a groan, curled in your usual patch near the back wall. Your cloak is damp, your knees stiff, and there's a very real chance something small and cold crawled into your wrap while you slept. You slap it gently. It slaps back. You decide not to investigate further. Outside, the world is gray. Mist snakes through the trees like it owns the place. The ground squelches underfoot, puddles forming in the usual low spots. The children are already sliding around like tiny mud lizards, shrieking with joy. One falls face first, gets up laughing with moss on his teeth. Youth, man. Unbreakable and always sticky. You're on flood patrol today. Yeah, that's a real job. You and 3 others spend the morning checking the trench you dug around the cave mouth. A shallow ditch meant to divert rainwater and stop the whole shelter from becoming a swampy disaster. It mostly works. Mostly. There's one spot where the water is pooling again, and guess what? It's right next to Dern's favorite sleeping corner. He glares at the puddle like it owes him money. Dig deeper, he grunts, handing you a stick. You raise an eyebrow. You have a shovel. He shrugs. Yeah, but you're closer. Logic. Classic Dern, you dig. While scooping soggy dirt and swatting away bugs the size of raisins, you hear a shout. Short, sharp, then another. You stand, hand tightening on your stick, because you swear if it's another squirrel raid. But it's not. It's the river. Well, not the river itself, but what used to be a harmless creek has now decided to become a small, raging beast. Rain from the night before has swelled it far beyond its banks, and it's dragging debris, branches, mud, possibly someone's abandoned fur mat, downstream with the enthusiasm of a toddler emptying a toy box. You all gather at the edge, watching as the water churns and snarls, devouring the trail that usually leads to the berry grove. One of the elders clicks their tongue. Flash flood. You nod slowly. Cool, so that's bad, right? Only if you like not dying. Right. Quick decisions happen. You're sent to help move supplies to higher ground. Baskets of dried roots, spare cloaks, that one mysterious leather sack no one's allowed to open. It smells like fish and secrets. Others are tasked with checking the secondary cave, a smaller, less cozy shelter up the hill, used mostly for storage or when someone needs alone time, after an argument about who gets the last piece of mammoth jerky. The move is messy. People slip. Baskets spill. Someone drops a fire-starting kit into a puddle and lets out a groan so loud it scares a raven from a tree. You haul 2 heavy bundles up the incline, nearly face-planting on a slick patch of moss. Behind you, Asa is barking instructions while holding a sleeping baby in one arm and a soaked fur mat in the other. How she still looks composed, you don't know. Witchcraft, probably. By mid-afternoon, the worst is over. The water levels begin to drop. The sky lightens. The stream calms down like a toddler who cried themselves out. You're soaked, filthy, and have at least 3 unidentified bruises, but the cave is safe, mostly. Which means it's cleaning time. Yay. Everyone hates cleaning, even cavemen. But after a flood scare, the cave smells like wet meat and burnt moss, and someone has to deal with it. You help mop up puddles with bundles of dried grass. The fire pit is reset. Bedding is aired out over low branches. A child tries to help by flinging pebbles into a puddle with a solemn expression. You let him. It's technically contributing. Later, once the floor is dryish and no one's in immediate danger of trench foot, the tribe gathers again. This time, under a pale evening sky that feels oddly peaceful after all the commotion. Someone brings out the food. It's simple tonight. Roasted root vegetables, leftover mammoth, and a strange, thick soup made from mushrooms and a questionable green plant that grows near the river. It smells like feet. Tastes like slightly better feet. But it's warm, and it fills the cracks. Awa sits beside you, stretching her legs. Her hands are covered in scratches, and there's a leaf stuck to her forehead. You point at it. She stares at you, doesn't move. You flick it off. Thanks, she mutters. Thought it was a spider. You both fall into tired laughter. Nearby, Dern is attempting to dry his socks by waving them in front of the fire dramatically. They catch fire. He yelps and smothers them in the dirt. Everyone claps. It's the highlight of the day. After dinner, someone suggests telling stories. Real stories from before the rain, before the mammoth, before even your time. The elders take their places near the fire. One begins to speak, voice low and rough. There was a time when the rivers ran backward. You've heard this one before? It's ridiculous, utter nonsense. You love it. The storyteller's words roll over you like waves. Giant birds that stole the sun, mountains that walked, fish that whispered secrets to children. Every tale more impossible than the last, every word more comforting. Around you, the tribe leans in. The children are wide-eyed. Even the dogs settle quietly, ears twitching. The rain is long gone now. The air is still. The fire cracks gently. You lie back, head resting on your wrapped-up cloak, and stare at the night sky beyond the cave entrance. Stars peek out shyly, blinking through passing clouds. The moon, still thin, rises like a grin. The story continues, spinning images of places you'll never see, creatures you'll never meet. But somehow in your bones, you feel connected to them all. Because stories don't need to be real, they just need to live. And this one is alive. It's well past midnight when the drumming starts. Not the usual rhythm of rain or the sleepy beat of someone snoring in sync with the dog. This is deliberate. Ritual. The kind of sound that rises from deep within the chest and makes your ribs buzz. You stir from a half-dream, something about riding a deer made of fire, and blink blearily toward the glow at the cave's heart. The fire has been stoked high again. Shadows flicker across the walls like frantic dancers. The old ones are gathering. So is smoke. So is mystery. This isn't just a story night. This is a shaman night. You sit up, blanket sliding from your shoulders. The air is thick, not just with heat, but with expectation. The others are already rousing, rubbing their eyes, murmuring. A few children are tucked safely into furs near the back, but most adults are sitting up, drawn in as if by gravity. No one was called. You just know when it's time. And in the middle of it all, wrapped in furs and bone trinkets and something that may or may not be foxtails, stands Oga. Oga the bone breather. Oga the tree speaker. Oga the one who once declared your cousin's hiccups were caused by a ghost and then fixed them by hitting him with a pine cone. You're not sure if Oga is wise or wildly unhinged, but you do know she's powerful. Her eyes gleam under the firelight. one slightly milky from age or magic or both. She doesn't smile. She never does. Instead, she begins to move. Slow, swirling gestures, arms rising, feet pounding. The drumming builds to match her pace. Someone throws herbs into the fire. The smoke changes color, greenish maybe, or maybe your eyes are already starting to swim. You've seen this before. Not often. Only on nights when the air hums strange. When animals act weird. When dreams spill over into waking. Olga starts to chant. Low at first, then rising, melodic, rhythmic, impossible to follow. But deep inside you, your spine responds, like it remembers something older than your bones. She's telling a story, but not in words, in sounds, in movements. A story about a cave that swallowed people, a bear that spoke with thunder, a river that reversed to carry spirits upstream. You don't ask questions, you just watch. The fire bursts higher. Sparks leap like fireflies. Olga tosses powder into the flames, something from her pouch, finely ground and clearly dangerous. The smoke hits your face and suddenly everything smells like mint and burnt feathers. You blink. Once, twice. And then the cave walls begin to breathe. Not literally. Probably. But the art, the paintings of mammoths, deer, dancers, shift, just slightly, like they're alive again. Moving, watching. You glance at Iwa. She's blinking slowly, eyes fixed on the wall, lips parted. Dern is swaying, hands on his knees, head bobbing like he's following some internal drumbeat no one else hears. One guy is giggling quietly into his own arm. You're calm. Floating, almost. The chants wash over you. The fire pulses in rhythm with your heartbeat. Olga reaches her crescendo, voice high, arms raised, and then drops into stillness. Instantly, no echo, no fade, just silence. And then she speaks, clearly, directly. Her voice is rough stone dragged across wood. You all dream, but not all of you listen. You sit straighter. She walks slowly, bare feet padding over ash and dirt. Her necklaces rattle softly, bones clicking like rain on skulls. There is a storm walking on two legs, she says. It waits, it watches, it remembers you. You swallow? Hard? Someone mutters a prayer. Someone else tries to stand and nearly falls. Olga doesn't blink. You will meet it soon. Some of you will not recognize it. Some of you will not return. Okay, so this is fine. Just a little existential dread to spice up the night. She turns to the painted wall. The spirits remember who you were, she says. But do you? Silence. You're not even sure if the others are breathing. Then suddenly Olga laughs, loud, harsh, and abrupt. Or maybe I'm wrong, she says, waving a hand. I'm old. My teeth are loose. Don't listen to old women with bones in their hair. She sits down and starts eating a dried root like nothing happened. The room exhales. One by one, people return to their mats, some muttering, some clearly shaken. A few stay, staring at the fire like it might offer answers. You stay a little longer, letting the warmth settle into your skin, your heart still racing. What did she mean? Storm on two legs. Spirits that remember. Dreamers who don't listen. You glance at the wall. The rhino with the big eye still looks smug. You're not comforted. Back at your bedroll, you lie awake for a long time, eyes open, tracing the cracks in the ceiling stone like constellations. Eventually, sleep comes. But not easily, and in your dreams. You walk through mist. The earth shifts under your feet, and something behind you is breathing, slow and steady, like it's waiting for you to turn around. Morning comes slowly. Not like the dramatic sun bursts over the horizon and birds sing in perfect harmony kind of morning. Number this one limps into existence, dragging fog and that eerie silence that makes your brain think something's wrong, even if it's just too quiet. You sit up, groggy. Your mouth tastes like charcoal and regret, like your dreams. Well, you don't want to remember them, but fragments linger like smoke. Shadows moving sideways, a fire that whispered your name, and something with long arms watching from a ridge. Yeah, just normal stuff. You roll out of your bedroll and blink at the fire pit. Still warm. Someone's already been up. You scan the cave. No kids, no noise. No thud boy? A low panic pricks the back of your neck. And then, there he is. At the cave entrance, covered in mud. Absolutely soaked. Grinning like he just saw a tree dance. He looks over his shoulder. "I caught a fish," he says proudly. Holding up what is, well, technically a fish. Small, half alive. Flopping aggressively in his palm like it wants vengeance. "You went fishing," you say. "In a puddle," Iwa adds, walking up beside you with a raised eyebrow. "It was a very ambitious puddle," Thud Boy insists. And that's how your day starts, with a wet kid, a barely functional fish, and an overwhelming sense of, we probably shouldn't let this one wander off alone. The good news, you're scheduled for childcare duty today. The bad news, it's you who's scheduled for childcare duty today. Let's be clear, prehistoric children are not peaceful woodland creatures. They are chaotic little bundles of instincts, sharp rocks, and endless questions. How big is a bear's brain? Can I marry a frog? Why does poop steam? Today's job, not losing any of them, or letting them lose any limbs. You gather them outside the cave, forming a loose semicircle around a flat rock. Iwa hands you a bundle of thin sticks, feathers, and sinew. "Teach them fishing," she says. You blink. "I don't know how to fish." "You do now," she says, and walks off. Great. You clear your throat, look at the small, curious faces staring back at you. Some smeared with ash, one chewing a stick, one with a bird feather sticking out of her hair like it's part of her soul. "All right," you say, lifting one of the makeshift rods. "First lesson, don't fall in the water." They all nod solemnly. 2 minutes later, someone falls in the water. You sigh, haul the child out, and wring out their tunic while they giggle. It's going to be a long day. You lead the group to the shallows near the stream. The water's finally settled after yesterday's flood tantrum, flowing lazily over pebbles and between reeds. Dragonflies buzz nearby. Frogs sit like royalty on lily pads, occasionally ribbiting with the smugness of creatures who never get assigned chores. You show the kids how to tie sinew to their sticks and how to not stab themselves with the bone hook. Then you demonstrate how to crouch patiently, rod extended, and wait. You last 10 minutes before one of them throws a rock at a fish, misses, and hits another kid in the leg. Tears. Screaming. Apologies. You calm them down, sort of. Eventually, though, something amazing happens. One of them catches a fish. Tiny. Shiny. Wriggling like a tiny silver god. Everyone cheers. The victorious child lifts it high. Someone shouts, "Name it!" Someone else shouts, "Eat it!" They compromise by singing a song to it and then respectfully putting it in the basket. The fish is confused but honored. As the sun rises higher, the kids begin to settle. They sit on rocks, dip their feet in the stream, whisper to bugs. You watch from a nearby stump, arms crossed, surprised at how peaceful it's become. Then one of them pokes your leg and says, "Tell a story." You blink. "What kind of story?" "A true one," they say. "About the before times." You frown. "Before what?" They shrug. "Before everything. Before you were born." You chuckle. "That's a long time ago." "That's the point," they say, as if obviously. So you think, and you begin. You tell them about the fire spirit who gave humans their first spark. About the mountain that sleeps under the earth and only wakes when it rains too hard. About the stars and how each one is the eye of an ancestor, watching and remembering. About how once the moon fell into the sea and was chewed on by a giant otter before it floated back into the sky, slightly chewed. They listen, wide-eyed, silent, except for the kid chewing the stick. He still chews. You respect his commitment. One girl leans against your side. Are the stories real? She asks softly. You pause. Yes, you say. They're true, even if they didn't happen. She nods, like that makes perfect sense. The sun begins to dip. The fish pile is small but respectable. You gather the group and begin the walk back. They chatter quietly. One sings a wordless tune. Another holds up a frog like it's a crown jewel. You tell him to let it go. He does. Reluctantly. Back at camp, the fire's going again. The tribe is winding down from another day. Ewa greets you with a half smile and raised brow. No one missing? You shake your head. One fish caught? 2 frogs kissed, 3 bruises. 1 existential conversation. She nods. A good day. You collapse beside the fire and stare into the flames. The children eat their fish with solemn pride. The tribe murmurs softly, and behind it all, the wind whispers through the trees. You wonder, years from now, will those kids tell your story? The day the stream sang, the frog prince, the stick chewer, the guardian who taught them to wait. Maybe, and maybe it'll be true, even if it didn't happen quite that way. Cave life has a rhythm, not a schedule. That's for people with clocks and meetings and that weird, unnatural thing called weekends. No, your world runs on hunger, weather, and occasionally drama. Glorious, unavoidable, delicious drama. Which is what today is all about. You wake up to a fight. Not a screaming and flipping tables kind of fight. There are no tables. But the unmistakable, low, hissed kind of argument that says, someone's feelings got hurt. Someone else pretended they didn't notice, and now the entire cave has to know about it. You roll over and see 2 people near the fire, arms folded, speaking in sharp bursts while pretending they're not arguing. Oa sits nearby, calmly sharpening a spearhead with the intensity of someone who is absolutely listening, but pretending not to be. You shuffle closer, pretending to check on the fire, because you too are 100% invested. The argument? Love. More specifically, who loves who kissed who behind the tree near the berry bush, and whether that even counts as a real kiss if it happened during a hunting break. You suppress a grin. Here we go. One of the arguers, a young woman named Kiri, is glaring holes into the soul of her partner. You said I was the only one you painted onto the cave wall, she snaps. The partner, Naro, awkward, swayed, and dumb as a bag of soft rocks, scratches his head. I thought you were. But then there was the other painting and I, couldn't remember which antelope had your earrings. Oh, wow, Carrie says, standing up. So now I'm just an antelope? You're my favorite antelope, he says. A pause. Then Iwa actually snorts out loud. The argument doesn't get physical, thank Mammoth, but the energy it brings is electric. Others begin taking sides. One elder claims this is why you should never kiss anyone near the berry bush. It's cursed. Someone else says Naro once tried to impress a woman by giving her a rabbit skull and calling it a symbol of rebirth. It didn't work. You sit beside Dern as the gossip swirls like smoke. He leans over and says, dead serious, I once drew a girl a whole deer. Full-sized. She still chose my cousin. You nod slowly. Tough. Right? It had shading. Around midday, the drama dies down and transitions into group activities. Kiri refuses to sit near Naro. Naro pretends not to care and carves a stick angrily. The cave's social ecosystem recalibrates. You're put on wood gathering duty with a handful of others, including, unfortunately, both Kiri and Naro. Awesome. The walk is long, winding through damp brush and frost-slick roots. No one speaks at first. You gather kindling, check fallen limbs for rot, and subtly try to stay between the two lovebirds turned rivals. Eventually, Kiri breaks the silence. He once called my hair mossy, but in a nice way. You glance at Naro. He shrugs. It was soft, like moss. I panicked. You sigh and drop a stick in your bundle. Maybe next time say it's like river grass. That sounds more intentional. They both nod, processing this like it's a divine truth. By the time you head back, the tension has softened. They don't hold hands, but they do argue about who saw the best tree fungus, which in caveman romance is basically foreplay. Back at camp, the conversation turns to an even more awkward topic: lineage. Because in a small tribe, where everyone kind of knows everyone, and names repeat every other generation, sometimes it becomes complicated. Iwa's crouched over a slab of bark, drawing a family web, like a tree, but more tangled. She frowns. Wait, if your mother was Jaka's niece and your father was the son of... That makes you your own cousin, Dern finishes helpfully. The group laughs, some nervously. This is a genuine issue. One elder squints at the chart. We need more outsiders. Ewa sighs. Or better records. You point at the cave wall. We could color code. There's a long pause. Then someone says, that's actually not a terrible idea. And thus begins the first prehistoric color-coded family tree initiative trademark. You spend the afternoon smearing bits of colored pigment onto stick figures, attempting to trace who belongs to whom. It goes about as well as expected. There are 3 Iwas, 2 Roars, and at least 4 people who might be siblings or might just look eerily similar because of shared cheekbones. At one point, someone asks you, do you think love was easier before speech? You think for a moment. Probably messier. Just more hand gestures and slightly more clubbing. They nod solemnly. Evening brings a new kind of energy. Calmer, quieter, but no less charged. The fire is lit. Meat sizzles. The cave hums with low conversation. You see Kiri and Naro sitting near the edge, not touching, but leaning toward each other ever so slightly. Progress. You sit beside Iwa. She's got a new spearhead in her lap, but she's not working, just watching. Think they'll make it? You ask. She shrugs. They're young, they'll either kill each other or make weird, loud babies. Either way, it'll be entertaining. You both chuckle. Then she turns to you. What about you? Anyone catch your eye? You raise an eyebrow. Is this an interrogation or matchmaking? Can't it be both? You think about it. The idea of love in this world isn't candlelit dinners and awkward texts. It's shared mammoth hunts. Fixing someone's broken spear, holding their hand after they got stung by a bee and cried for an hour. Love here is practical. Messy, real. You shrug. Maybe, someday. Ewa nods. Fair. You sit in silence for a while. The fire cracks, the stars blink, and just for a moment you let yourself imagine. Not survival, not hunting, not even storytelling, but something soft. A life where love grows like firelight. Unsteady at first, but strong and warm and worth the work. Night falls again as it always does, slow, creeping, and inevitable. The sky turns from bruised purple to deep velvet, stars poking through like flecks of crushed bone and black ash. Somewhere an owl hoots, the soft hoo swallowed quickly by the thick forest around you. You're tired, not just physically, though your feet feel like stone and your shoulders are permanently sunken from hauling wood, meat, and emotional baggage, but in that deep, slow way that settles behind your eyes and wraps around your thoughts. You need a moment. But the world isn't ready to give it. Because tonight, you're on Night Watch. Of course you are. To be clear, Night Watch isn't about glamour or heroics. It's mostly about sitting still, staying awake, and trying not to imagine every rustle in the dark as a saber tooth with a grudge. You sit on a stone perch just outside the cave, fur cloak wrapped tight, spear resting against your shoulder. The fire behind you flickers gently, casting a golden spill of light across the cave entrance. Inside, the others sleep, snoring, twitching, occasionally mumbling in dream speak. One kid keeps saying frog over and over. No one knows why. Your ears stay open. Your eyes scan the trees. And the longer you sit, the louder everything gets. The forest is not silent. It never is. There's the wind, whistling low, sometimes high, like it can't pick a key. The insects, a constant murmuring buzz, like gossip whispered between grass blades. Branches creak, water drips. An animal shrieks in the far distance. Something being eaten or doing the eating. You try not to think about it. You glance up at the stars, comforting in their cold consistency. You whisper to yourself the ones you know. Elkhorn, split fang, the big firebird. Stories written in light. You're halfway through a quiet yawn when something shifts. Not loud, not fast. Just different. A pressure. You lean forward slightly, peer into the trees, and there, between two birches, is a shadow. Too still. Too upright. You grip your spear, heart ticking faster. Is it a predator? A rival human? Oga's storm on two legs? You wait. A breath. Another. And then it moves. Slowly, not toward you, just away. You exhale. Long, shaky. Possibly you were holding your breath for too long. You consider waking Iwa, but she's earned her rest. You decide instead to listen harder. No footsteps, no branches snapping. Whatever it was, it didn't want trouble. Still, your senses stay high, and that's when you notice the fire behind you is low. Too low. Someone was supposed to feed it before bed. You groan quietly and stand, gathering a few sticks from the nearby pile. As you crouch, tossing kindling onto the embers, you hear something behind you. A whisper, barely a sound. You spin. Nothing. Just a raccoon. Okay, probably not a raccoon. But you hope it's a raccoon. You laugh softly to yourself. A tired laugh, a nervous laugh. The kind of laugh people do when they're a little too aware that there's no lock on the cave, and the only alarm system is a guy named Roar, who snores like a mammoth choking on a pine cone. The fire crackles back to life. You sit again. This time you listen, not just with your ears, but with your memory. You remember what Oga said. The spirits remember who you were. You think about that a lot. Who were you? Before this? Before caves and spears and drama over romantic mammoth drawings? Maybe you were a leaf, or a bird, or a raindrop that fell on the same rock for 100 years and wore it smooth. Maybe you were this, always this, sitting in the dark, watching the world, wondering how much of it is watching back. You stare into the fire, it stares back. And slowly the fear fades. Not because the danger's gone, but because you know it now. The wild, the dark, the unknown. They're not your enemies. They're just part of the rhythm. Later, when the moon is high and the shadows feel less sharp, Ewa appears at your side, rubbing sleep from her face. My turn, she says, voice rough. You nod and hand over the spear. She doesn't ask if anything happened. You don't say a word. You walk quietly back into the cave. Step over a snoring Dern. Curl up beside the wall where the fire's heat barely touches. And just as your eyes close, you whisper a silent thanks. To the dark. To the watcher. To yourself for making it through another night. Morning doesn't so much arrive as leak in, dripping through the cracks in your eyelids like melted snow. Your bones feel like they've been borrowed from a rock, and your mouth is a battlefield of ash and morning breath. You sit up slowly, feeling every vertebra crack like ancient ice underfoot. Another day begins. You stretch your arms and immediately regret it. Soreness clings to your shoulders like an overenthusiastic wolf pup. You glance toward the cave entrance where pale sunlight filters in. warm and golden like honey spilled across stone. Outside, the forest breathes. Steam curls upward from the trees. Birds call softly, and somewhere far off, the faint sound of someone shouting, "It bit me!" echoes. Classic. You roll up your fur blanket and head for the fire, where Owa is squatting, brow furrowed, flipping something in a pan-like slab of rock. It smells surprisingly good. "What is it?" you ask, rubbing your eyes. She doesn't look up. "Some root thing and eggs." "Where'd we get eggs?" "Don't ask." You decide not to ask. You eat. Slowly, mindfully. The root thing is chewy. The eggs are edible. Maybe. By the time the rest of the tribe stirs, the cave is filled with chatter. Someone's organizing a foraging party. Someone else is loudly insisting that mammoth ribs shouldn't be chewed on the left side of the mouth because of spirits. The children are already barefoot and sticky with sap. You envy their energy. Today is a rest day, for most of you anyway. No planned hunts, no traveling, no tent-mending marathons. Just slow chores and maybe, if you're lucky, some storytelling and games. You settle near the fire with a pile of wood shavings and a flint tool, intent on carving something that's either a spoon or a duck. You haven't decided. Nearby, Roar is braiding strips of leather while humming a tune that sounds suspiciously like the lullaby about the dancing bear who steals your dreams. Charming. Iwa joins you, holding a half-finished net made of vines. "We should fish tomorrow," she says, squinting at a knot. You nod. "As long as Thud Boy doesn't lead." "He nearly speared a tree again," she mutters. You both laugh. Across the camp, someone begins humming. Then someone else joins in. Within minutes, the entire tribe is echoing the low, soothing rhythm. A simple melody passed down through who knows how many generations. You hum too, letting the sound vibrate in your chest like a heartbeat that doesn't belong to you but still knows your name. And then comes the wind down. It begins subtly. People cleaning their tools more slowly. Voices softening. The children finally sitting down. You lean back against a warm boulder, feeling the sun press gently into your skin. Someone adds pine needles to the fire, and the scent rises. Sharp, sweet, nostalgic. You think of everything that's passed in the last few days. The hunt, the feast, the rain, the strangers, the argument over moss hair, the kids learning to fish and paint and ask impossible questions. You think about how fragile it all is, how strong, how loud, how quiet. You close your eyes, feeling the weight of the day settle into your chest. Not heavy, not crushing, just present. And as the sun begins to dip, painting the trees in golden shadow, the fire pops gently beside you. You open your eyes and see Oga across the way, holding a stick like it's a staff, gazing at nothing in particular. She doesn't speak. She just knows. And somehow, you know too. It's not about the stories being true, or the dreams making sense, or even whether mammoth bones make good tent poles. They do, but only if braced properly. It's about being here, together. Now in this strange little pocket of time when the world is too big to understand and too beautiful to ignore. You exhale slowly, and the fire breathes with you. The sky deepens into a soft, velvety blue. Stars begin to bloom above the treetops. First one, then two, then a scatter of silver freckles across the heavens. A breeze stirs the edges of the firelight, cool and tender like a mother brushing hair from your forehead. Inside the cave, voices fade. The laughter, the humming, the thudding of feet, all softened into a gentle hush. Someone adds a final log to the fire. The flames respond with a sleepy crackle, stretching one last time before they begin to settle into glowing coals. You lie back against your fur wrap, the stone beneath you no longer hard but familiar. The earth holds you now, as it always has. Not as something to fight, but something to lean on. Your eyes flutter shut. In the distance, an owl calls. The fire dims. Your breath slows. You remember the warmth of roasted mammoth fat on your tongue, the ache in your muscles after a good hunt, the way Ewa's laugh broke through silence like sunlight through storm clouds. You remember the stories, the painted walls, the songs under stars, and you realize this was never about surviving, it was about belonging. So rest now. Let the world turn quietly beneath you. Let the cave hold your dreams like old stories waiting to be remembered. You've done enough. You are enough. And in the gentle dark, as the embers whisper their final lullabies, you sleep.